This is the roof of our cockpit enclosure. It's designed to give us protection from the rain and shade from the sun. It's also designed to catch fresh water and to hold our solar panels. So what I've got to do today is figure out how those solar panels are going to be mounted. The panels we've got are going to be mounted here and here. And I want to make some brackets which will lift the panels up very slightly so they're not swimming in water when it does rain, and which will allow them to pivot upwards a little bit like this. This one will pivot up this way, like this, so that this one can pivot up when the sun's on that side of the boat, and this one can pivot up when the sun's on that side of the boat. And my plan is to make those brackets using this stainless steel angle. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut off a little piece of this angle, make one bracket, and see if it's actually high enough or whether it needs to be on a bit of a standoff. Just as I thought. Yeah, it's going to need to be on a little standoff, about that high. But I'll cross that bridge later. I'll make that out of something, a bit of steel or a bit of foam or something, so that it'll eventually sit around about that height. The next thing I'm going to do then is make 4 of these for these back corners, and I'm going to round the edges off and drill some mounting holes in them. Right, here's my little brackets. So the square side will bolt down onto the fiberglass and bolt all the way through, and the curvy side will go through the side of the solar panel. I'm actually thinking what I might do is they're going to have nylocks on, but I want 2 of them to be quick release. So I'm thinking I might actually weld the bolt all the way through, but I'm not sure whether I want to do them that way or that way. So I'll probably not weld them and commit myself too much for that just yet. And then of course, I've got to make sure that I get enough of a gap in between these 2 solar panels that when I tilt it up, they don't interfere with each other, but also there's clearance around the corners. So they need to be kind of across that way a little bit. So there's clearance here, mostly so that if you're walking down the side and you grab the rail, you don't clatter your finger against the corner of the solar panel. That might not be achievable, but enough of a gap that it can tilt up. Yeah, do you see what I mean? And clear the other solar panel. I'm going to have to do some jiggery pokery to work that out. So I've measured across, and it's 203 centimetres all the way across. So the centre line is 101.5, which is exactly there, right between the panels. So that's bang on. To make sure that they're exactly right as well, this here is some of the offcuts of the fiddle. See the fiddle around the edge, the grab handle that we cut and routed when we made the fiddles. So it's got a beveled edge on the top, which kind of matches the bevel that we put in using a fillet of epoxy on the inside of the grab handle. So that fits in there nicely. And what I've done is I've used it all the way round along the edge, along the back, and along the other side. So I'll show you how that affects things. What it means is that along the edge here, you've got a nice gap there for your fingers to go into, which is the same width as the foam that we originally used. That goes all the way along the back. Now the reason I've got it along the back is because I want access to get, tools and spanners and stuff in to get the solar panels on and off. Although you're not going to grab hold of the back here because there's going to be a boom gallows. That big piece of mahogany here, I'm going to make into a boom gallows which goes across the back of it there. But there's plenty of gap there in between the solar panels to mean that when they tilt up, these corners won't interfere with each other. That was the purpose of this exercise, of this bit. So what I'm going to do is mark exactly where these corners lie, which is here. This one's a little bit more tricky because it's slightly elevated because of the slope. We've got this slope on the nose so that water runs down into this front end, and I can put a drain here for water collection. And because aesthetically I think it looks better. So there's 1, 2, lovely. I think it's time for you to go and put the kettle on, because there's going to be some annoying adverts now. So if you can leave them running while you put the kettle on, then we earn a little bit more money. But if you want to skip them, just skip them. Here they come. So accepting the fact that they're going, these are going to have to be on a standoff. Can I mount them like this? Should I mount them like this? Or should I mount them like that? Because there's a lip on the underneath of this frame as well. I'm really not sure at the moment. So I'm just contemplating. I think I'm going to put that in that way from underneath. And I need to make a plinth for this to sit on. This is just a block of foam. I'm going to make it a bit lower than that. But I don't want to make it with sharp edges. I want to taper the edges. So I'm going to cut a fresh piece and I'm going to taper it off in 4 directions, I think. 40mm wide, 18 centimetres long. 18 centimetres long. I know a hacksaw is not the right tool, but it's exactly the kind of blade profile that I think is going to work for this. A hot knife would have done the job better, but this is beautiful. So that is our standoff for our 2 little brackets. So that one's for the aft end, that's for the forward end. Lovely. Look at this. This is so neat. And as I say, by using the full thickness of the foam, I'm actually raising this centre apex of the solar panels even more out the water, so that people have said before, oh, your solar panels are going to be swimming in water. No, they're not, because I was never going to do it that way. But this mitigates that, and it also means that there's more of a slope for water runoff and a better angle to the sun. This is now going to go here. Fiddly-dum, fiddly-dum. Because I've got to drill some holes through the foam, and then I've got to drill all the way through my roofy bit. Now, at this point, you may be asking yourself, or saying, yes, Andy, oh, pants. But what about the other end? What are you going to do to secure the other end of your solar panels, the outer sides? And the answer to that is, I don't know, because I haven't worked that out yet. But I will. Oh, pants, that's the wrong way around. Turn round. Right. You get under there. Ow, 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 ow. Aha. Now, do you see why I had to cut this one down a little bit more? So I'm going to drill the holes in this bit of foam first, and drill them all the way through, put some nuts and bolts on, do everything up finger tight. And as I was explaining last week, the plan with the holes through this, you'll see later on, I'm going to use a hole saw to cut the holes out oversize and fill those holes with thickened epoxy and then re-drill them. And of course, remember, this will all be glassed over, so it'll be solid as a rock. Do you know, I could even stick a spot weld on the bolt heads to the bracket so that there's no way that that's going to turn then. I can then tighten them up from the inside without having to put a spanner on the top. I might do that later. Okay. This is exactly what I mean about welding the nut onto the bracket, because now I've got to get a nut on the back of this. So that goes there. Yeah. Do the back one next. Here's some more of those annoying adverts. Sorry guys, go and put the kettle on again. You get under there. For this dry assembly, I'm using wing nuts because it just makes it easier to take it apart, put it back together, take it apart, put it back together. Obviously, the final assembly will be locking nuts and dome nuts on the inside in case somebody knocks their head on them. Cool. Nice. Couldn't have gone much closer to the corner than that. I'm very impressed by the thickness of the aluminium in these solar panels. That took some drilling. I was worried they were going to be all flobbery and flimsy, but they're not. They're super strong. The thing is, I suppose if they're made to go on the top of camper vans and such like, and bounce down the road at 70 miles an hour along dirt tracks on survival zombie apocalypse trucks, they're not going to be crap, are they? They are from, incidentally, I got these from Pro Marine Store, where I get a lot of bits and pieces. Link in the description. Ben has become one of my best mates as a result of this. Is just a super, super helpful guy. So anything like this, go straight to Ben. He'll sort you out for solar panels and electrical stuff. Here we are. Lovely. So now, there's no nuts on these, but this solar panel now hinges up, like so, which is super cool. And I can now either put a prop or a gas strut. There's a load of different solutions to this. So I can hinge that up. I can prop you there for a minute. And I can spin a nut onto this. I don't know why I've just done that, because I've got to take that all apart to glass these in. But it's okay. I just wanted kind of to see how it looks. And I think it's really, really cool. The advantage of this being, of course, that now I can lift this up, I can reach the middle to clean it, to get all the bird guano and rubbish and sand and nasties off there, so that when it starts raining and we want to collect water, we can let this run clear, lift the solar panel up quickly, give it a quick clean underneath, scoosh all the bird crap and all of that stuff off, and then wait another minute or two for it to be running nice, clean, crystal clear water, which will go through filters as well. And then we've got lovely, clean drinking water without anything in. You know what I'm going to say now, don't you? More adverts, yeah, go and have another brew. So we're at this position. Both sides now lift up. Lovely. For cleaning underneath them and for angling to the sun. I may well go with a gas strut actually, because if we just use a prop, then there's a chance that somebody could knock this and it could fall on somebody's fingers. So I'm probably going to go with a gas strut, but I haven't decided that yet. And in the down position, there will be more of these stainless steel angles with nuts and bolts to really secure it down, both for very strong winds and for when we're sailing. The last thing we want are these coming loose. So when we arrive at an anchorage, we can take the pins out and angle them up for whatever reason. But when they're secured down, they'll be secured down really sturdy. Not just another pin in this corner, but more all the way around. So the next thing I've got to do is fill the drill holes with epoxy and re-drill them. This whole thing is built out of this green foam, this PET foam, and it's fiberglassed on top and bottom, so it's super strong. But it's not got massive compressibility. I think it would crush eventually if you really crush it, really tightened up on the nuts and bolts. So there's several ways of doing this. I can drill out and I can put some tubing, some brass tubing or some stainless steel tubing or something to stop this from crushing when I crank down on the nuts and bolts. But I think a quicker and easier way to achieve that is just to drill these out with a hole saw a little bit wider and fill that aperture with thickened epoxy and then re-drill the holes. Right, so all of these holes that I've cut out have now been filled with the thickened epoxy. I've got to let that cure so I can re-drill the holes, but what that means is that the solid thickened epoxy is going to be much less compressible than the foam would be and less likely to crush under strain. I've also used the rest of the thickened epoxy to glass over the standoffs, which I'm going to fiberglass in place and put cloth over the top of them. The next thing's going to be, after that, is going to be to get some paint on this. But the paint is all over at Steel Melody. Which is why I've come all the way over here in these terrible conditions to fetch some paint and have a bit of a tidy up. It's blowing 40 knots consistent and we've got gusts of 72 knots today. Yeah, it's wet out there. Hang on. It's pretty brutal. I'll put the weather on the screen here. 40 odd knots consistent, 72 knots. It's actually predicted about 70 knots this evening, but it feels like about that now. Right, I'm going to get this Jotun 87 primer, because all the paint and stuff is stored on here from when we moved out of the house. I'm going to get the primer, and I'm going to get the Hardtop XP, which is UV resistant. I do love the fact, you know, that every time I come here, even when it's bucketing down with rain, it's dry as a bone. There's a tiny drip from up there, which is where the windscreen wipers go through the front of the pilot house. And I've forgotten, oh well, I haven't refitted them yet. So there's two little holes and the wind's driving straight in there. But otherwise, all the repairs that we've done on this boat over the years, you know, they've all worked fantastically. The boat's dry. Right, what are we looking for? We're looking for Jotun. A lot of this paint, of course, is still going to get used on Steel Melody to get her back in, you know, tip-top shape. But at the minute, I need to get the the cockpit enclosure done, don't I? So a lot of people have been asking about Still Melody and asking what our plans are about, you know, for her future. And the fact is, the hull's finished. There's no more welding left to do apart from 2 chain plates. The only things left to do now to get this boat in the water is paint the top sides, you know, with a top coat and then anti-foul under the water, reinstall the keel, do the through holes, which just bolt on with rubber flanges anyway, connect up the steering and then step the mast. And that's actually not that big a list of stuff. Everything else really is just cosmetic, things like paneling out the aft cabin or the lazarette and things like that. All the wiring works. It's not as tidy as I'd like it to be, but it all works, and it, you know, everything on the boat works. So she is ready to just have the, I'll just go through that list again. Reinstall, paint the top sides, anti-foul below the waterline and anodes, reinstall the keel, do the through holes which bolt on with rubber flanges, connect up the steering, and then she can go have the mast put up and go in the water. So what are the stumbling blocks to us doing all of those things next week? Well, the boat costs £190 a month to keep here in the yard. If we launch her immediately, let's say we just pulled a mad week and got her in the water next week, she would be about £600 a month to keep in the marina. So it would be stupid of us to put her in the water right now and have 2 boats in the water. The other stumbling block is we're penned in by loads of different boats. So it's winter here, and over winter, like in most places in the world, lots of boats lift out into the yard over winter. So there's loads and loads of boats blocking. Now, to get the keel in and to step the mast, you need a crane. Well, to get the keel in, we need the travel hoist. So we'd need to be lifted in the travel hoist and left in the hoist straps for a weekend, just like we did on when we took the keel out, because there's a bit of jiggery pokery to get the keel in, and we've got to seal the keel box up really properly with loads of Sikaflex and loads of nuts and bolts. So we'd need a whole weekend to do that. But in order to do that, we've got to wait for the other boats to go back in the water, which they'll probably do in a few weeks' time, probably mid-March. I think a lot of these boats are going to get moved. So we want to get her ready to just jump on that. As soon as the boats have been moved, I will be booking the yard to book the travel hoist to lift Still Melody so we can get the keel back in and the keel box resealed up. Once she's got the keel box sealed up, my plan then is to have her put in the water without the mast. Now I'll explain why. The keel box lid is here under my feet, right? It's under this table. The mast compression post sits on this plate here where my foot is and goes, I'll have to put a hole here, and supports the deck, the deck of the boat under where the mast sits. So once we put the mast up, there's an enormous amount of pressure down through this compression post to this bolted plate, which sits on top of the keel box. Now, if we put her in the water and she's got a drip, 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 a little leak from the keel box, if we've got the mast up, we are stuffed, because we've got to have the mast taken back down, the whole thing de-rigged to fix that drip. So my plan is this: as soon as we've got the keel box, if we get the yard to lift her on a Friday night, Friday afternoon, stay in the strops for the weekend. So we've paid for 1 lift, we've only been lifted once, right? Stay in the strops for the weekend, spend the whole weekend, get the keel in, get it mounted properly, get the end cap on, get the keel box bolted up and sealed up, and then make sure everything else is connected up. Then on the Monday morning, I want them to lift us into the water. So take the travel hoist, dump us in the sea. And I want to stay in the sea, sitting on the boat for 48 hours, just eagle eyes, just watching that keel box to make sure it doesn't leak. If it doesn't leak, we're sweet, we're golden. We can even have the mast stepped with her in the water, because we can just wait for the tide to go down, sit on the mud at the bottom and get them to use the crane to put the mast up once we're in the water, so we don't even have to lift out again for that. So the plan is, step 1, continue working on Still Melody as much as we can over the next 2 months without taking us away from the critical work on Ocean Melody. Step 2, the things that we can absolutely do are connect up the steering, connect up the exhaust, connect up all the skin fittings, and get everything ready for the keel to go back in. So that's anti-foul, anodes, and paint work. Step 3, speak to the yard, and as soon as the other boats have been moved, get them to lift us
in the strops for a whole weekend so that we can reinstall the keel. That will cost us around about £400, I think. So we need to save up £400. Step 4, stay in the strops for the whole weekend, get the keel in, get the keel box sealed up completely properly, and then on the Monday morning, have them lift us into the water to check if the keel box leaks. If there's no leaks, and hopefully there won't be, get them to step the mast and we go for a sea trial. So here's what I want to happen. I want to find a buyer for Steel Melody fairly soon, kind of now. Not somebody to buy her and take her off our hands, but somebody who wants to buy her, perhaps puts down a deposit, and is then part of the process of getting the keel in and getting her launched. Purely because the way the keel goes in and sits on that pin and is sealed up, I completely understand that, and I've got a complete handle on it. And my worry is that, especially if I sell the boat to somebody and she's already in the water, they're relying on just a description from me and some drawings of how that works, maybe in these videos and stuff. But I would far rather, I'd feel a lot more comfortable if the new owner saw her out of the water. I could show them the keel out of the boat, and they could see me put the keel in, be here while it happens, maybe even help while it happens. Not asking for that, but be part of the process, and then they'll have a much better understanding of how the keel goes in and works. And same with all the other systems on the boat. When I've got to connect up the steering. Now I can just do that myself in an afternoon and not even bother filming it and just go, oh look, the steering's all connected up. But if the new owner sees me install that steering, and they'll be able to go, ah, right, okay, that connects to that, I see. And then if there's a problem, they're in a much better position for fixing it. So that's the thing. I want to find a buyer for Steel Melody now. Somebody that's expressing a genuine, proper genuine interest. And if that's you, please email me right now at turner.andy@hotmail.com. I may have to in the end, but I don't think at the moment I'm going to put the boat on eBay, because I don't want just any randomer from eBay buying this boat. I want it to be somebody that watches this channel and genuinely wants this boat. In terms of how much we're asking for her, make me an offer, because we want to go sailing, and we'd far rather see her go to the right person than hold out for more than she's worth. Okay, so make me an offer. You might be surprised, but turner.andy@hotmail.com. Be part of the last 8 weeks of getting this boat ready to go in the water, because we're going to put her in the water, and I want you as the new owner to be part of that process, so that you are confident that everything has been done right, because you've seen it being done. Right, on the way back from Steel Melody back to the workshop to do the epoxy paint, I've swung by Ocean Melody just to check how she is, because of this 74 miles an hour wind gusts that we're having. We're actually getting pretty close to high tide, I think. So the combination of high water and this wind is going to make things pretty exciting. It's always super protected in this marina though, even in winds like this. Even in winds like this. And you know, yeah, the boats are moving around. There's a bit more swell than you'd expect and all the rest of it, but it's not bad. There are a lot worse marinas to be in, I think, in this kind of weather. Oh, hang on. Their zip is undone. I'm going to take the initiative and do that zip up before it flogs itself to pieces. Hang on. That was going to destroy itself otherwise. I know, strictly speaking, I should ask for permission before getting on somebody else's boat, but I'd rather just deal with it, and if they shout at me, they shout at me, but I don't think they will. We're fine. Right, so let's just check. Yeah, good. Good. Centre cleat's fine. Doubled up lines on the bow. She's been rocking and rolling because the dehumidifier is the other side of the galley. Okay, I'm going to head straight back to the house. It's about 7 o'clock in the evening. We are rocking a bit. So we're expected the highest winds at about 9 p.m. So what's the time now? Yeah, it's only 6:30. So I don't really want to just sit here for another 2.5 hours. The warps are good, the line's good, the fenders are good, everything's fine. I trust this boat, I trust this marina. So I'm going to head back to the house and crack on with the fiberglassing and painting work. Good grief. You probably can't see on the camera, but look at this. The mast of these boats, they're leaning right over. Well, I'm back from my little trip out. The epoxy that I poured into these holes earlier is nice and hard. So what I want to do is just put a patch of fiberglass cloth over each one of them, and also a patch of fiberglass cloth over each of these standoffs so that they're nice and rigid before I can start painting. So there you go, we've got one coat of primer on this. Now the primer I'm using is Jotun 87, Jotun 87, right? And I'm using the winter grade hardener. See, the hardener says WG on it, Jotun 87 winter grade. Now the winter grade hardener, basically, the reason I'm using that is because it's suitable for slightly lower temperatures and not such great conditions. So it's dry as a bone in here and it's good conditions for doing the work in, but obviously it's winter, so it's hovering around the 10-degree mark in here. So that's why I'm using the winter grade hardener instead of the standard hardener. On top of that, what I will be putting will be this, the Jotun XP hardtop, Jotun hardtop XP. Now that paint is UV stable, so if you didn't do it, the paint would be fine, but it will go chalky because of UV over the years. So you use the XP hardtop as like a hard shell hardtop on top of the primer. So that's what I'm going to be doing over the next few days, is more coats of paint on this and getting it, you know, getting the hardtop XP painted on there. But all the mounts are done. I've glassed over the standoffs that I've made. I've put glass patches over the filled plugs so I can re-drill those holes for mounting it on the stainless frame, and then she'll be ready to go back on the boat. So it won't be long before this is actually on the boat, guys. With that said, I'm going to close the episode there. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you very much to our patrons who are going up this side of the screen now. Love you all very much. If you want to become a patron, go to patreon.com/sailingmelody. So yeah, thanks very much for that, guys, and thanks to you for watching. Thanks for your comments, thanks for your likes, and we'll see you next time on Sailing Melody, where I believe you're going to see some upholstery coming up soon. Melissa's working very hard on the upholstery on the seats, and she's filming that at the moment, but she doesn't want to release it until she's got the full episode sorted. So it might be next episode, or it might be in a couple of episodes' time. You've got that to look forward to. In the meantime, I hope you have a lovely time, guys. See you later. Bye-bye.